Hey, it's Freiburger here from Roadkill and Engine Masters, and I'm about to show you a sample episode of this How to Build Your First Engine series that we've been doing on Motor Trend On Demand. It's me and Steve Dulcich showing you just basics of assembling your very first engine. We're doing them every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on MotorTrendOnDemand.com. Here's a sample episode. Well, this is it, Dulcich, our very last installment on the engine series.
I can't wait to hear it run.
I know. That's going to be a long time from now. But what we're going to do is show you how to install an intake manifold, and that will be the end of all the tips and tricks that we've been giving you on this 360 small block Mopar. Go back and look at Roadkill Extras over the past several weeks, and you're going to find a lot of stuff about the whole assembly of this whole thing. We haven't shown you every single little detail about what you need to do to assemble an engine, but I think we've gone into pretty good depth on the subject we did cover.
I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
I think that if I was a guy and I saw every single one of those, I could probably put this motor together.
Would you feel empowered?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are we going to do? Throw this intake manifold on. Can you grab it?
First, I want to take these tabs off. The cylinder head gaskets have these tabs to hold the cork.
You want to take them off? I just fold them over.
No, put your finger on that.
So that you can smash me?
Hold it all the way down. Okay, do you trust me?
No.
Don't let go.
There we go. Okay. So that little tab he just broke off is part of the head gasket, and normally it would hold down the cork that goes right here, wherever it is. This cork, see if it even has a hole in it. But he's taken it off because we're going to have to test fit the intake manifold before we start.
And also, I just don't like those tabs even to hold down the cork.
Yeah.
Even when I use the cork.
Okay.
So you probably would never have guessed that a chisel and hammer would be part of an intake manifold install.
I didn't see that coming.
No.
Okay, the intake manifold we're going to install here is an Edelbrock RPM air gap, high-rise dual plane with an air passage underneath all of the runners right here. This is the intake that we like for most street engines. And we're gonna make sure that it's all clean and tidy. And as a matter of fact, man, you cleaned this thing up good.
Oh, I know, I spent a little time there.
Looks new.
Yeah.
It was used.
Only the best for our 360.
So it's all clean, the heads are all clean, and we are gonna drop it on here as a test fit because when you use head gaskets of various thicknesses, when you deck the block, when you mill the cylinder heads, it all affects how the whole package bolts together and changes the shape of this V shape right here. And you can end up with problems such as the bolt holes not lining up or the gap down here touching the block, all sorts of things like that. But I think we're gonna get away with this, Dulcich.
It's gonna be pretty tight once you get the gaskets in there.
Yeah.
It's gonna be right at the bottom of the bolt holes. I can tell you that right now.
So let's stack the gasket and have a look.
Uno, dos. You might have to kind of hold that gasket up as you're putting the manifold in.
Okay.
Your side looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I was expecting much worse.
So what would you do to fix it if those were all offset? You know, we're looking down the bolt holes to make sure that the hole in the cylinder head isn't like this with the hole in the intake manifold. Would you just oblong all the holes in the intake and go to town?
It depends. If I have a dyno test the next morning and it's like 3 o'clock or 3 hours past midnight, yeah, I would pull out the carbide cutter and start hogging. But really, on most of your V8 engines, if you mill the heads or deck the block a certain amount, you pretty much have to take almost the same amount off of the intake face. That's if the intake face is at a right angle to the deck. Now, this isn't exactly a right angle, so it might be for every 10 thousandths you take off the deck, you take 9.5 off thing, but it's pretty much 1-to-1.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was a little more complicated than that.
No.
This gasket's in my way, but I think the bolt holes line up.
Well, you can always tell by doing 2 diagonal ones. If you can get the 2 corners in, that's going to be no problem.
Now, the other thing that we look at that's really critical is this gap right here between the bottom of the intake and the top of the block, both on the front and the back. We'll sort of eyeball the size of that because if it's touching, it's bad because then it's holding the intake up. And if it's huge, you know you got to deal with something. one way or another. Here are the corks that are provided with your gasket set, which are supposed to go there. If I slide this right here, I can see that that cork still dangles kind of freely in there. So I have two options. One would be what we normally do on the dyno, which is take that Permatex gray. This is their new Optimum gray, and this is a more rigid sealer than the black, which is like their best oil seal, and it's more flexible. But because this is more rigid, we sometimes will use only a bead of the gray to seal both ends. But I think in this case, we're probably going to slap down the corks, right? And then just skin them with some black.
Well, there's going to be some compression. I bet you that once we get this fully installed, it's going to compress the cork. So
I would still skin them with some black, though, just to make sure, because we're actually putting it in a car.
Well, I won't let you.
You won't? Mm-hmm. Why not?
Because this is going to seal perfectly along the cork. I'll just put a little bit in the corners.
Okay.
I'm telling you, it's going to be fine. Trust me.
All right.
I love it when he just gives in to my demands like that.
Are you done with the pre-fit?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's coming back off.
You know what's really handy about these gaskets is they come with like an adhesive backing, so
you can stick them on.
They won't slip out of place. You want to line it up perfectly in the corners first.
Yep, you should have trimmed it.
You think so? No.
Sometimes those are a little long and they'll buckle in the middle.
Yeah.
But you can see what's going to be critical is this corner right here. It's got to get some sealant on it, or that's going to be foobar. Okay, so you got that stuck down.
It's sitting flat in the corners. I'm pretty satisfied with that.
Yeah. And, oh, you have the front one in your hand?
Yep.
Slam that down. This is a Felpro intake manifold set, and the gasket itself they call a Printo seal. And if you're working on aftermarket cylinder heads, sometimes the port window is larger than what the factory would have offered, and so Felpro or Mr. Gasket has aftermarket gaskets for all of those different heads. So when you put the gasket down, one thing you want to do is definitely make sure that it's not intruding on your port window. And on that note, when your intake manifold's being mocked up, you saw us just test it a little while ago, if you've got a single plane intake, you can take a flashlight and look through and check your port alignment from the intake manifold to the port on the cylinder head and just make sure that it's not hideous. You know, a little bit of offset and stuff, we've dyno tested that before, and I think gasket matching is pretty overrated, but it depends on how much it's actually intruding. You gonna use some rubber cement to hold this in place?
Yeah, a little contact cement.
Are you gonna let me put a little RTV around the water ports?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's gonna lay down some contact cement. And with these Printo seal gaskets, they're called that because they've got this blue sort of raised rubber part on them. And theoretically, they seal without any sealer whatsoever. But we usually take the extra precaution with the Permatex gray and just put a little thin swipe around each water jacket, or water port, I guess. Just a fine thing, because sometimes those leak and then it's a real pain in the neck. You got to do the whole job all over again.
Freiburger, I might have to explain myself about this contact adhesive.
Okay, I'm ready.
I'm not working for a newspaper and laying out stuff old style. The thing is, when you put the gasket up against the head and then you drop the manifold in place and the bolts are snugged up, sometimes that can pull the gasket down and out of position. So I like to just put some contact adhesive right around where the bolt holes are just to tack that gasket in place. I'll also put a dab on the gasket. So once the two come together, we'll be assured that it's not going to slip. Is that pretty much covered? Do you ever do that, David?
Yep. Sometimes I'll just do that with a dab of silicone, or I'll trust the water port silicone to take care of it for me. Okay, do you want to use the black or the gray in the corners?
I'll let you choose.
I have to admit, I only recently discovered that the black is the most oil-resistant Permatex, but I've always used the gray, so that's what I'm going to do right now. Ready?
Yeah, hit the gray in the corners, and then I'll squish the gasket into that recess.
So the deal is you got to get this recess sort of filled in there. You don't need to fully glop it, but you definitely want to shove that RTV down. How do you feel about that?
I think that's excellent.
Okay, let me do the same thing here. Oh yeah, that gasket.
That's going to ensure a complete seal.
Yeah. You know, they call this stuff gasket maker.
I know, just because you...
Instant gasket in a tube. Okay.
I think the sealing area is back here.
Think it is?
Mm-hmm. That's where the tab...
Oh, I didn't see that was...
That's all right, Freiburger.
On it. You trust it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Steve was getting anxious.
Well, the thing about contact adhesive is once you make contact, it's going to fix the gasket in position.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
So I'm dipping the ends in and boom. Making sure all the bolt holes line up. We're doing extra precision here. If you watch us on our Engine Masters show, you'll see on the dyno, we'll just
I didn't put
slap the stuff together, but in this case, we're being careful.
Sorry.
What?
I hadn't put the gasket adhesive.
You did.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Okay.
You mean the rubber cement?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all on there. See, it's fixed.
I'm sorry for having doubted you, Freiburger.
I know. Okay, now I'm going to go back and put another dab of RTV.
I think you did a better job than I did.
Probably.
Yeah.
Goes without saying.
But my side's all right.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to do just another little dab here where these corners meet, because that is the place where we're most likely to get a leak. Oh, that one looks pretty good. That one looks pretty good. This one.
Do you see those slots where the little tab that we eliminated would normally go?
Yeah.
I like putting a dab in those.
Oh, you want to put some in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Just fill that up.
Oh man, that's a nice technique you're using.
So you're not going to let me skin it with black at all?
No.
No? Okay. Oops. Messed that one up a little bit. All right. Do you want to put some gray around the water ports on this side, or are you going to trust the Printo seal?
I would trust the Printo seal, but I'm going to let you make that call.
Are you going to grease the gasket so the intake comes on?
No.
No? Okay. I'm going to put a light skin just because I want that assurance. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't want to...
A failure or leak here will allow water to pour into the lifter valley, which leads to the whole lubrication system. So you really don't want a water leak.
You do not. I just am doing a really thin skim on here. One of the problems with having to RTV it on like this is that when you do change the intake manifold, it makes it more difficult. But in a permanent installation for actually putting the engine in a car instead of the dyno, I think it's worth it.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's just that we always end up changing stuff, so.
I know, and then you have to clean it all up every single time. Okay. You want to drop it on?
I'm going to make a note about something before we put that on.
Okay.
A factory cylinder head has an exhaust crossover right here. And there's a corresponding passage that goes right across the intake manifold, and then there's another exhaust crossover in the head. Now, these heads and the intake as well, they don't have the exhaust crossover, but OEM parts do. And a lot of times guys will think, well, these gaskets don't have a hole, so they block off the exhaust crossover, but
it'll blow right through it.
I can assure you within 10 minutes of running, there's going to be a big hole there and a big hole there because the gas cannot take that kind of heat. So.
Some kits come with a little metal plug that you can put in there, but I would always block the crossover for a performance application.
Oh, for sure.
They make the carburetor like hot and boil and all sorts of stuff.
You can put a thin piece of sheet metal behind this gasket, and this gasket's got enough compressibility, and that would solve the problem.
I've cut it out of like beer cans and stuff before. Those usually rot through. Okay, Are you ready to drop it on?
Yep.
Okie dokie. Now we try and aim as we go to get it to drop in place right the first time so that we're not...
You need to be more... Oh yeah, okay, you're good.
Yeah, I'm good. so that we're not moving it around afterwards, because it's better not to. Okay. Now it gets into the conversation about tightening it all down. Ooh, do you want to put some sealant on these? The bolt holes on these heads go clear through to oil.
Not in the four corners, only
on the inners? Okay,
yeah.
So let's seal the inners. So the oil can work its way up the threads and just make a mess out of it later. So I'm gonna keep my eye on these corks to make sure that I like how they squish. Ooh, I think it's gonna be really good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I started talking about tighten the bolts down. The factory manuals will tell you a sequence, a torque sequence of how you're supposed to install these, but kind of like we did on the cylinder heads, we're pretty sure you can just start in the middle and work your way around. You know what, I'm actually having an alignment problem here. Even after all that checking, we might have to bash this over a bit. Yeah, feel this bolt.
Once you pull it down with the speed handle, it'll
Yeah, but
rest the gasket enough.
Look at the alignment.
Yeah.
Got to get a couple on there. That one has sealer, do you care?
Yeah.
Try and get that one in there. So instead of doing the factory pattern, we'll just end up with a speed wrench running them all down and then taking a wrench and just by hand, not by torque wrench, sort of zinging it all down. And I think that that will be about all there is to installing that intake, right?
Yeah. See that?
You know what that means, right? That's a wrap on this entire series that we've done on this engine.
That's pretty good. I feel like we covered things adequately.
Adequately?
Yeah.
Adequate is good enough.
Well, I don't want to have like show inflation by.
I guess it's true.
Yeah.
So what's the future of this engine? Well, the intent of it is to go in the car from Roadkill Garage. It's called Vanishing paint. It's a 1970 Dodge Challenger. It's that green one that's all rusty and clapped out looking. And what we really want to do is put a stick behind this thing and do some basic suspension mods and try and go out there and actually run against a brand new Challenger and win. I don't know if we will or won't, but
we will.
We want to do that on just a regular, basic working guy's budget, which is exactly what this engine is. There's nothing trick here. Everything that we've done in the entire series, you can easily do yourself. You might have to buy some tools from Powerhouse, some of the specialized stuff, but overall, this is as easy as it gets.
Pretty much.
Yeah?
Yeah, Mopar small blocks are among the simpler engines.
But I think what we showed people applies to a lot of different engines as well, except for maybe the shaft rocker system. So there you go. That is a wrap on the Roadkill Extra series of engine building tech tips. If you need more Roadkill Extra, go sign up right now.